Objects in the sky. We don't know exactly what they are.
Of landing a man on the moon and
Have anyone been murdered?
I have to be careful asking that question.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Your eyes is useless when your mind is blind. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, we're going to get right into our conversation and start down this hole of Project Grudge and the other project that we be talking about, which is something I think they try to erase when you're looking at this, or you're looking at the history of UFOs. Project Sign is what I meant to say. And I'm sure if a lot of you haven't been familiar with it, you'll get a lot of information about it tonight. And I like to tie this in because it does tie us in a little bit to what's been happening with Nibiru a little bit, because all this stuff is predictive and everything else. But let me get into it, because most people think UFOs were just light in the sky back in the day. But, you know, as always, what if I told you that our government, the big secret keeper, once believed that they weren't just real? They were not even from Earth. That's what they thought. And they buried it, you know, quite some time ago. So tonight, I'm going to show you the two government programs that began it all. Project Sign, and the most pressed one in history, UFO history, was Project Grudge. And so we're going to get into that one as well. And so by the end of this live stream, you're not only going to know the truth about what they tried to erase, but you're also going to understand why anyone who got too close to, especially Grudge, was silent permanently. And so I think that's something worth talking about, worth noting, and everything else. And so I'll get right into this as we go. And we're going to start with Project Sign and everything else. And if you're familiar with Project Sign, why don't you put into the chat there and let me know if you're familiar with Project Sign, and then or Grudge, anyone, and just kind of state a little bit what you know about it. And I'll put it up on the screen as more of an interactive part of all of us, so that we can kind of go down that route. But when we start with Project Sign, and of course, all of this encompassed the cover up from beginning, when they did it and fell right into place. And so what I'm going to say is, now here's where most people got it wrong back in the day. They think that the cover up started in the 60s, but this is where it really began. And I'm going to shape this story for you so that you can kind of know this stuff been around quite some time, and time enough that we can assume that they do know what we're talking about. They do understand what is going on. And of course, if you go all the way back, a special group of American top scientists was organized, and the program under the name Project Sign was created. And this happened way back in December of 1947. Now, of course, in December 1947, they put this together to study the phenomenon, and Project Sign has been active from 1947 all the way to 1949. Now, keep in mind, whenever these programs end, you will find, if you do enough research and everything, that nothing ends. They just change a little bit, maybe a name, maybe move into some other covert situation for more funding. It's just so many stories. But some of science personnel, including Dr. Robert Snyder, favored the extraterrestrial hypothesis and the best explanation for what he called the UFO report. So we're going to get into a lot of that, and always, again, hopefully you had a great weekend and everything else. I am contemplating right about now to say we can go ahead and meet this Saturday, but I need to get Maya. I need to talk with you and a couple other people before we go ahead and make that decision. Just more of a small group, and then we can plan for a bigger event, or something. But I think we're about ready to do that. But listen, I want you to first go for the first official U.S. program from the UFOs didn't dismiss aliens. They believed that they were real, not just what they told the public. And you're going to be shocking of some of this information, because through Project Sign, they investigated early UFO report. Historian David M. Jacobs write that the highly publicized Chills-Whitted UFO encounter, which happened July the 24th, 1948, had a great impact on science. So let me kind of go into this a little bit. In that encounter, there was two experienced airline pilots claimed to see this torpedo-shaped object nearly colliding with their commercial planes. And this has been something, in fact, you can get in Google, and you can hear a lot of this information. Now, Sign Project Sign's personnel judged the report convincing and compelling, but partly because the alleged objects also closely matched the description of an independent sighting that The Hague did a few days earlier. So usually this happens all the time. When we see UFO sightings, oftentimes that there are multiple people see this or within days, because if they're here visiting or something flying around, or maybe it's multinational corporation, our own stuff, they usually see this and everything else. And so I think it's something that you might want to look into from that standpoint. So anyway, but listen, but that's only half the story. And so I got all my notes here in my iPad here, and Sign's personnel intensified as an investigator that they said that Child's Whitted sighting for several months, they said despite the lack of physical evidence, and that's going to always be the problem, that some Sign personnel judged this as other UFO reports quite persuasive and conducted that the UFOs could have only been a non-earthly source. I want to keep that in your mind for a minute, of non-earthly source, because as we go through these next several days of different shows, we're going to dig deeper into this, that a lot of these things they're saying is possibly coming from inner Earth. And once again, that's always the challenge when we start thinking about the UFO stuff and all of these things, that there could be, something to look at it. But the question is, why would a top Air Force analysis risk their careers by supporting their theory? At that time was outrageous, and now unless the evidence was undeniable. And you want to think about that all the time. When we start talking about Richard Byrd or Avenue Byrd, we start talking about all of these different whistleblowers or different people that has these reports that they're seeing things or they've seen stuff that most people think is outrageous. And we still got to look into the backstory. A lot of these people risk their careers telling us some of this crazy stuff. And so therefore, why would they do that? And if you really think deeper, it's because most people believe that it is true as it can get when it comes down to this. Now, here is where the other part was once you go from here. Project members reasoned that they had several dozens and observations that they could not explain. And of course, we already know where the term UFO comes from at the time. And many of them, like military pilots and scientists, the object seems to act like real technology, but their sources said that they were not ours. And this is where we get into the challenges of what we have today. When we start thinking about, is it man-made technology? Is it UFOs? Is it, extraterrestrial, otherworldly, vehicles, all of these things? Because there is a contemplation of things in our skies. So you have, man-made objects that we are testing, the government themselves, the big secret keepers. You have man-made objects that private corporations are testing, military-based companies, or maybe it's some company that is trying to build some new technology. And then you have, of course, extraterrestrials, and then you have otherly worldly events. When all of this ties in and shapes a narrative, it's very difficult for the public to discern that it could be lesser than that. And don't get me wrong, a multinational corporation, a government entity that's using some type of new technology, is nothing in the world they wouldn't want except for the public to think what they just saw was a UFO and not government tech, right? So they can hide under that banner per se when these things happen and pretty much there. So those are things we can go from there. I'll give a shout out to all of you in a minute. Deborah, Factory, Polo, Stepdaddy, Diane, Denisha, and then the list can keep going. Well, I have to scroll back up to say hello to all the rest of you, but I'll do it over time. So we'll give a shout out. But here's the game changer. And one of the things that you have to understand, that the flying fuselage that was on this object back in 1940s or whatever encountered them with intrigue back then, because at this point they're like, we don't know what the hell this is. We don't know what it is. Now, there is something called the Prandtl theory of lift that indicated that such an odd shape can fly, but it would need some more form of power plant advanced technology beyond what we could build. So they did not believe that the UFO or the type of objects in the sky that was kind of like these little tubular things that didn't have wings or any propulsion couldn't move. They just didn't know how to make it move themselves. So they felt that, hey, it's got to be somewhere else because we're not there yet. And similarly, that happens all the time now, because it's not that there's not somebody who have thought of or maybe written down some type of advanced technology or maybe some patent to something that's futuristic that today that we might assume that, no, this got to be from the future because we don't have the pieces or the technology needed to build such an aircraft or something, item or whatever. And that's not really always true. However, as we know in our military compound that we have reverse alien technology in most of our stealth aircraft and all this stuff. So we know that it is highly a point to, so people can know and think about those things. So I think it's just something that, again, it's worth for you looking into, think about, look back on, so that you kind of know that this stuff been going around longer before a lot of us was born. And in the 40s, I wasn't even here, so don't even go there. But just to know that the situation was there. Now, they prepared the estimates of the situation, a report arguing their case. They said this hypothesis was ultimately rejected by high-ranking officers, and then they said that Project Sign was dissolved and replaced by Project Grudge. I alluded to you that in a minute, because Project Grudge has probably been one of the most secretive programs ever existed. And why would they do that? Why would they move Sign to Grudge? Well, quite obvious. They found something out in Project Sign that they need to take it to a deeper classification probably, and somewhere deeper where they didn't want people looking into it or finding out more information. So quickly they was like, hey, shut that program down. We need to take it deeper. And so this is one of the plans that they do. And so I think it's not something that has not happened. It probably still happens today. All this stuff happens today when they want to do stuff like that, and pretty much. So get used to it when it comes down to this. So they made the case of extraterrestrials. So this is when it all changed. This is when the world begins to understand that there's aliens out there, because we had the Roswell, New Mexico crash around 47 as well. There was a lot of activity, but don't mean that there's things that happened prior to, but then the word extraterrestrial began to surface. Now, they had a classified document called the Estimate of the Situation. And it said plenty. If you go back and you can Google it and find it, and what it did was it kind of said some things about what the Pentagon, how they seen it. And when they did look at it, when this thing came out, they killed the story. But there is a story of a document called Estimate of Situation. And I'll get into a lot of ways that they handled a lot of that stuff and how they want to put things out there. And it's worth noting that it's worth for us looking into and all that. So let me look into the chat a little bit and see what we got here. And if anybody's having a conversation with me during this, Denisha said, Grudge is such a bizarre name. Yeah, right. I mean, they have some Sign, Grudge. I mean, of course, we know Blue Book. We have, there's a lot of stuff. I'm sure they got a Project Roderick out there, right? And then we know that, well, they're not going to call it Roderick. They're going to use the same spelling, Roderck. They're going to call it Project Roderick. That makes it a little, that's my alter ego, right? But that's how they do it. But anyway, you just think about it. The names have some hell of a meanings in it, and pretty much in there from where. All right, so we got my guy with Wide Woke Open Pot. Man, I was gonna call you the other day because I ain't heard from you in a while. That's Rob. Y'all know he has his show and everything else, but we'll talk, man. I'll give you a holler and tell you what's going on and everything else. Maybe toward the end of this show in about 40 minutes, if you got your camera, then you can come up. We can say some things as well. All right. So, but anyway, yeah. So tonight I want y'all to kind of get involved in the conversation. Get involved in the conversation. I put on my alien hat just for y'all. Okay. This is a special edition hat so that we can talk about aliens, so I can get the message through that we're talking about aliens when we do this. So let me continue down the road so that we can go there, because I'm going to talk to you about the holy grail of ufology in just a second. You heard me say the name, and that was something that's pretty interesting. But listen, I want you to wait for a minute, because this part might change how you see everything that I'm getting ready to go into. So let's look into this right. As of late 1960, so I want you to document this in your mind, the U.S. Air Force personnel claimed that that this document never existed, the one we was talking about, the estimate of situation. Now, however, several Air Force officers and one consultant described the report as being a real document that was suppressed. And the names were Jenny Randalls, and then there was a Peter Holt, described the estimate as the holy grail of ufology, and noted that the Freedom Information Act request for the document has been fruitless. And this is where it gets, the game starts, right? As you know, we have the Freedom of Request Act, Information Request Act. And that allows any citizen like yourself or any of us to ask the government, show me the situation. Show me whatever this is, blah, blah, blah. But there's a catch to it. They do not have to admit to you that what exists unless you get it down, zero, bald, accurate. Okay, so that would mean you need to know the name, the call signs, the everything you need to know. If you know it was called Project Sign, and then but yet you say a 0-point energy aircraft because you got to give a description, but yet it was Project Sign, a whatever spaceship, it was just something else that you didn't describe. They're gonna send it back and say, we don't have, this doesn't exist, because they know the majority of the people don't have deadball accurate information, so they can hide under the Freedom of Information Act. And now this was way back in the 40s and 50s. Then, of course, now they got even smarter with this thing. So they said, well, okay, let's do this. Let's create or work with some company. So let's work with a defense contractor like McDonnell Douglas. Let's take this aircraft that we found that crashed, and we're going to hand it to them, and we're going to tell them we're going to give you this aircraft, but we want you to reverse engineer it, and we want you to build us a weapon. McDonnell Douglas said, okay, all right, well, what's the other benefits of that? Well, you also get to keep the patents or whatever that you're wanting to make and learn from it that keeps your company at elite status. So this is the trade-off. Now, what happens is that even though we know that McDonnell Douglas has this thing, because it's now a private company, and when you try to ask for that information, it's almost like them saying, no, we ain't telling you nothing, because they don't have to. And that's the way they cover it up these days. So they give it to a private contractor, and then they don't have to answer a For You Act. The government does, because it's supposed to be we the people. And these people get very clever doing this. Now, the other side of this company like McDonnell Douglas allegedly makes gazillion, I'm making up a new word, gazillion dollars, because they get to keep the technology. They get to build weapons. They get to build things that they can sell to consumers, and all of this as though that they have innovation, but yet they have stolen, or I wouldn't say stolen, or found technologies. And this happens all the time when it comes down to this. So when they said that this document was estimated as the holy grail of ufology, then anything, when you start talking about the holy grail, they're cutting that stuff up, and they're going to put it up, and so that we're not going to be able to, see it or do anything about it, or pretty much from there. Yeah, so I see everybody like the alien head. I never made a lot of these, none of these, and put it on the website because I thought they were just too plain that anybody wouldn't buy one. I have a black one, I got the white one, and a gray one. Hey, well, you never know. There may be something I need to offer and put it up, but that's kind of funny. All right, so let's continue down what we was talking about here. So the estimate of the situation was rather a thick document with a black cover, and it was printed on legal size paper. Stamped across the front was top secret. Of course, you would know that. And it contained a Air Force analysis of many of the UFO incidents, all which had come from scientists, pilots, and other equally incredible observers, and each one was unknown. So that means they already do their research. They all already do their research. But what you're going to hear now, you're not going to believe what happens next. And so let's go into what happened next. Project Sign evolved into Project Grudge in December of 1948. So I've gave you that little tip already. A low-level collection project named Project Blue Book was formed under Project Grudge. Now, we already know Project Blue Book was supposedly to dispel the mist and all this, but really was probably a public handler of an organization to debunk all of this UFO stuff, although they had a mandate that they're going to discover, but really, you know, that they was put in place to debunk everything. And so why not? Because it sat underneath Project Grudge. And so therefore, why not send it out front to hit all stuff that you knew you was going to be releasing or trying to test with Project Grudge? So these people play these games and they play them really well. They're really good at what they do. And we just don't really see the little subtleties of these things, but they do it all along. And the reason we're talking about it tonight, because it's going to tie into what you think you're going to find out about Nibiru. Because the closer you get, the stuff that happens, the silence is going to get, unless you start listening to influencers like myself, which, as you would know, I'm a certified UFO investigator, and I have my whole DNA is UFOs. And so, you know, I don't talk about it a lot as I used to, but, you know, now's the time, right? And so it's worth noting that all of this stuff is coming around the corner. And so there's something for you to understand it. Now, of course, even from the beginning, it wasn't designed to get to the bottom of the UFO phenomenon. I kind of mentioned that. And its real mission was to cover up reports of sightings with phony explanation and siphon any real information and make sure it was never revealed to the public. Plus, it was a great opportunity for them to spread disinformation. We're talking about Blue Book. They don't make movies on Blue Book. They try their best to put it out there so that we think it was a good cause or it's the movie. But Hynek, you already know, it was a different story. Paul Hynek is his son, Professor Hynek's son, and he's in my phone right here, you know. So I've had conversations with them in the past, you know. So these things were just set up so that we will see things a certain way and everything else. And basically, it's not worth us looking at when it comes down to this. All right. So, well, we do want to look into it because we want the truth, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's what they do not want us to ask those questions, and because it's just something that, you know, we want to know. I think it's just something we want to know. All right, so let me continue as we go further here. All right, so also, if the real mission was to cover up reports of sightings with phony explanations, then it was a great opportunity, like I said, for them to spread disinformation. This wasn't just bureaucracy. It was the blueprint for decades of lies, but the story doesn't end there. It only really gets a little darker. And let me take you down that rabbit hole, because now we're going to get into something that a lot of people don't talk about. It's called Grudge 13. Okay. And so remember the name, but the number. Grudge is out there, but Grudge 13 is a little more deeper and darker of a situation, and we're going to get into it. So if I told you that this one report was so disturbing, so classified, that it was erased completely, and you might be saying, well, Roderick, how do you know about it? Well, you should know my history right about now. The only one that was they never wanted people to see is Grudge 13. And we're gonna mention a little bit about it. I'm gonna skate through it a little bit. I told y'all long series of Project Grudge reports have been mentioned over the years in connection with the United States Air Force investigation into UFOs, which was supposedly terminated with the release of the Condon Report in the 1960s. Now, reports 1 through 12 of Grudge Blue Book was generally, and it contained no classified or truly sensitive information. Because you remember, even through the movies, they just kept reporting, you know, this doesn't exist, this doesn't exist, this doesn't exist, or this is not real, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. They kept doing this continuously, even in the movie, if you noticed it, but hinting that there was something else that was out there that they didn't want people to kind of know when it came down. But then there was a final report, number 14, which was widely circulated, missing from public view. However, people was like, what happened to 13? How did they skip 13 to 14? And this what stirred everything up, because they was giving everything in a chronological order, 1 through 12. People saw it. They was waiting for each report, 10, 11. And when they said, okay, we're going to finish, we're going to release the final report, which was supposed to be 13, they came out with report number 14, which set alarm bells all across, which 13 would have been, okay, thank you. Oh, Marla, thank you. All right. Yeah, so Project 13, which probably would have been the final report, somebody took it and said, you ain't showing them this. You are not going to show them this. So, but you're going to release 14 because they had to, because it's classified documents. And here's the part that shocked me when I was talking about a part, but several years ago, Bill English, I did some research. He's the son of Arizona state legislator and former captain in the Green Berets, had been assigned to the Air Force at the time. He had a listening post, is where he was, in the north of London as an information analyst. Well, and English was, in course of his duties, asked to prepare an analysis of an elusive Grudge 13 report. So he kind of leaked that out, which is even far older now, you know, as a Green Beret top secret access. What he found in a report would haunt him and anyone who heard it for life. And like I said, maybe between tomorrow and the next day, I'm going to go into what was in that report, what they decided they want to do. I want to make sure that I put it in here just so that we may talk about it later on here in the show. New. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about that probably tomorrow or the next day. And it's going to explain to you why they're building the bunkers. I want to secretly tie that in. So make sure either Wednesday that y'all come. I think it'll be part, you know, it's not a part 3 thing, but I'll tie it all in. So you'll know why they're building these bunkers, because I'm hinting now from this report, they found out something that they said we need to prepare. And they started doing it back then. What we're hearing now is just new news of stuff that's coming through, allegedly that how it's going, but it's definitely something that they were looking into. So let me continue so that we can keep going down this rabbit hole of information and everything else. All right. So yeah, 14, the date, she said she was September the 14th. All right. So Denisha, welcome. How old are you? My daughters are both September the 3rd and the 16th, and my mom is September the 28th. So I know September babies. And so that means, yeah, at least I did it twice in my life because I got 2 kids. I ain't going to count for everything else, but I will say twice I did. And I make pretty babies too. Yes, I did. All right. So 34. Okay. All right. Well, cool. Good for you. All right. So let me keep going here. All right. So let me bag up and set the tone for what I'm about to share with you. I was telling you about what they found out, some of the information. So I'm going to skate through some of it so that you can get a little bit where we're going to go with this so that you understand why we're happening today. I'm trying to tie things in today so that people will know what is really going on, because we want to talk about Nibiru, but there are some other things that ties into this and everything else. So the key to it was not only that we're going to dig a little deeper. So when the Green Beret top secret had access, and what he found out, he said that the English had been no stranger to the UFO phenomena. In Vietnam, he was a member of a special forces investigative team that went to retrieve the B-52 that was forced down by a UFO, and all its occupants was unalive. So this is a story that went down. Now, also, if we dig a little deeper, there's more, because they said communications had been received from the B-52 bomber before it went down, to the effect that it was under attack by a UFO, a large light, and the plane was found intact sitting in the jungle. There was no indicative thing about the crash landing. Only at the bottom of the fuselage showed any damage, and then there was no damage under the underside of the engine pods. Although the plane was completely intact, the entire crew had been shredded. Okay, so this is something that they was like, what? All right, so we have to look at it from there. So at this point, the question would be, why wasn't this in the headlines? Why did they never make it into Project Blue Book? Because it was in Grudge 13. So when you get things like this that happen, it will never make it to the public. Now, over the years later, they'll declassify stuff that they think, well, okay, and then they'll redact most of it anyway. So it's not something that we're going to see and pay attention to when it comes down to it, all of those things. But the other part is, I'm going to get into Bill English revelation of what some of the things that he said. And once again, y'all know my disclaimer, the grammar box, the letter box, and all that stuff. And if you have not done it already, let's pause for a second for station identification. I've always wanted to do that growing up. And like the video. Okay, let's like the video, and we can do that, and then we'll continue on with the story as we go. So what year was that? That was in the 1940, I think, 7 or 47, 48. Well, now grunge came after Sign, which ended in 1949, and then Grudge came, and then Grudge 13 was just for a few years, and then they opened up Blue Book right underneath. And so all of this stuff is just pretty much the plan, the action plan. All right, so Bill English revelation was through contacts that still remains, has determined that the U.S. government most definitely supports a project dealing with specifically with UFOs and captured aliens. Wednesday, we're going to talk about those captured aliens. That is specifically the whole conversation. And we might go 2 or 3 hours Wednesday because there's a lot of information. It's about the graves. They captured one. I'm going to go through some of the chronological information there, tie you in, show you a couple of books that you must get that we don't release. We never had, but I don't care now. So I'm going to tell you where to get it. You're going to read some stuff that no one has. A lot of people don't even know it exists, but I'm going to tell you where to get it. And it's on Amazon in plain sight, but people just don't know. Okay. So I'll share that with you on Thursday because we're going to talk about they capture the aliens. So I'm going to release some information to you. And why am I in good spirits to do so? Well, because someone is going to super chat. They're going to say, hey, thank you. We love your show. You know, we know it's a community funded show and all of this stuff. We don't want you going out, putting signs up, we'll work for food. And no, ain't nobody going to feed me at all, period. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm petty like that, and I shouldn't be. But when I do see people, you know, got signs and we'll work for food, I do be like looking them up and down like, yeah, you don't need to eat that. Yeah, whatever. But remember, they did a series years ago where people would do it and they say, I need money, but they wasn't really saying what it's for. And they was catching them going back to their cars. They had like Cadillacs and Mercedes and $300,000 or $400,000 houses. And they was like, why would you do that? And people said, well, I just ask people I need money and they give it to me. So it's like, wow. Okay. All right. So that was a little detour. Sorry about that. Well, anyway, through his contacts, like I said, he said, according to him, what he's learned is that the U.S. government captured a trio of aliens, and that was in the mid-1981. And one of them was still alive in captivity. Now, a lot of you heard those stories about those things and all of those things, and we talked about it, but like I said, it's time to go deeper into all of that, pretty much. Judith said 9/9 over here. Okay. And I'm lost. I don't even know what that means. She said in Atlanta. Denisha is in Atlanta. Okay, cool. All right. So, and let me kind of go into this a little deeper for you. That they had caught an alien and they were saying one is still alive. A lot of you probably heard the story of one of the aliens that's still alive, or maybe not. There's a lot of names surfacing around. However, the book that I'm going to share with you Wednesday and the story that I'm going to tie into is a lady that was interviewed that alien, talked to the alien. She would only talk to her. When she was about to pass away, she released her notes to an author and told him to write the book. And the alien tells you everything. It tells you some stuff. In fact, we should do a whole series on that book. And it tells you about a lot of stuff that's happening today. She's the one who told us about the animal that I always talk about that they put on a planet. Name was Ariel, and she was like, well, the platypus and all the different signs. And this stuff has been spot on, okay? And like I said, it's something that we will go into. But, you know, if y'all not really interested in it, I won't mention it. Maybe I'll get some texts, or maybe somebody or email and say, Roderick, we want the information or whatever. And I could put it into the private area, but I think there's something everybody needs to know. And so we're just going to chop that up as that. But we're going to talk about it Thursday. I'll bring it up a little bit Thursday so that, you know, it's not left behind from there. All right. So now here's the part that a lot of people don't really talk about. I'm going to skate through it because I'm not giving you stuff that I'll get in trouble for, even though I know, but I'll give you some good stuff. English also claims that at one point in the 1950s, the nurse was the only one the alien would talk to. Yep. Mm-hmm. In English, not in English, but English claim, Bill English is who we're talking about, that in the 50s, that at one point until mid 1960s, the Air Force maintained relocation and debriefing colonies for people that had experienced encounters of the third and fourth kind. You remember there's first, second, third, fourth kind. That's why we had the movie Encounters of the Third, Fourth Kind, Third Kind, or whatever. And then you have CE5, so that's how they do it. CE1, 2. One is contact, one is physical contact, and all of this. But when people was going to the third and fourth kind, now we call it CE5 today, they were isolated for all intents and purposes for the rest of their lives. And this is why you get a lot of people that didn't really want to tell the government what happened to them, because the rumor has it, once you told them, they pick you up and allegedly funny form you go. And so you can imagine even today why people were a little nervous about sharing their encounters and everything else. And so when I did put up Project Black, and by the way, we still been trying to figure that one out on the back end, because I got a lot of people that came forward telling their stories, but 99% didn't want to go public. And so now I had a situation where I'm like, damn, I got all the stories. I got the good stuff. Well, how are we going to share it? It was, only 1 or 2 people out of 67 was willing to go public, and so, but I understand it, but I was like, damn, that whole purpose was kind of, and we got to figure something else out. Maybe they can talk under some lights or whatever. I don't know, but I have to figure that one out. I just haven't put a lot of thought into it. Once it started becoming a recurring event there, that people's like, yeah, I'll tell you, but I don't want nobody to know. Well, they were isolated, like I said, and I want you to kind of sink this in for a minute. People who made contact with disappearing, not abducted by aliens, but hidden by the big secret keepers. And like I said, that's where the problem was. English dictated 2 audio cassettes outlining that he remembered from Grudge 13 that the information contained indicated that there has been suspected all along that the big secret keeper was involved in the greatest deception in history of mankind. And not only did flying saucers exist, but the government had several in secret storage and had captured at least 3 aliens. Now, I'm saying this because we're talking about old news, because now they're trying to say things change it a little bit, but you got to remember that history shapes the future. So certain things that they keep, they don't want us to know. They're not going to tell us, but it also shapes these things. So if we want to think that was real, but they really got that over here, this is where it gets a little tricky, and this is where it gets darker, because these are things that we need to know. And so what I'm about to share with you now is not about a sighting, and this is something darker. So I'm gonna give you a case. It's called a Darlington Farm case. So I'm gonna give you a moment to get your notes out. I'll drink some water. I'm gonna share with you one of the cases, though, okay? So that you get some information. Now, of course, if you had your luminous like I have, you will have the emblem that's already blessed and charged up for energy to see in the dark, to understand and represent. And so again, I got a few of them left, not a lot. And I'm wearing one, and there's a lot of other people wearing one that I sent out over the weekend or today and all of this stuff too, or they will be. But anyway, and thank y'all for if you are out there and you were one of the ones who's got one. All right. So, well, I talked to you on the phone anyway, because everybody that called you. And pretty much. So we got Deborah as a new member in the house. Y'all give a shout out to Deborah as a YouTube member as well. And I got a clap for you. But anyway, the chat, y'all give a shout out to Deborah. 1016 is the number. And yep, Jay Berg, she got hers. We talked a little bit as well, and she sent me some information and all that stuff. I like talking to you guys. I really do like meeting you all personally, because it really does help in some stuff there, and pretty much from there. All right, so let's continue to do what we're going to do. Here we are. Kind of lost where I was because I knew what I was about to say to you. I'm going to give you actually 3 cases, and we're going to talk about the Darlington Farm case. We're going to talk about the White Sands case, which, oh my God. We're going to talk about a secret recovery team, where they had autopsies. and then we're going to talk about a few more things of the stuff, and that'll take us to the top of the hour of where I'm trying to go with the show. All right, so let's go back for a minute and let's discuss the Darlington Farm case. Now, the following is a summary of Bill English remembers from what he read during the day of July 1977. Now, I'll let you know, 1977 was a special year. I don't know why, but I just wanted to make it seem that way because I was born 7 years prior. Yeah, 1970. Okay. So that lets you know I'm 25 times 2 plus 5. Okay. For those you mathematical geniuses and everything else. Well, anyway, Project Grudge Blue Book Report number 13 revealed one case especially noted and remember was a very vividly was entitled the Darlington Farm case. This was out of Ohio. This case apparently took place in October 1953. A man, a wife, and a 13-year-old son were sitting down at a dinner table, and they sat there. The lights in their farmhouse began to dim. Okay. Now, I've heard rumors of this case, but here it is. Buried inside the report that never existed, of course, the report did. As they stood and watched, the mother and the father heard the boy start screaming, for whereupon the father grabbed his shotgun. I can't tell you how benefit that was, and began to run out to the field with the mother following. All right. And then they saw their son being carried away by what looked like men into a huge fiery looking object. Let me start this over and then we'll get back into it. Shantae says she was born in that area too. Oh, 77 or 70? Which one? All right. So listen. All right. But we only had 2 people that welcomed Deborah as a member. Y'all, come on, y'all truth seekers. We're better than that now. Y'all give her a bigger shout out than that. All right. So listen. So once again, they was eating dinner. Now I don't know how he got outside, but supposedly the man, the wife, and the 13-year-old was sitting down at the dinner table and they saw the lights in the farmhouse. And as they stood and watched, the mother and the father heard the boy start screaming. So obviously, they all stood up and watched, and somehow they were able to get the kid. Jay Bird, my granny told me this story. Somehow they was able to get to the kid. The aliens were able to grab the kid from the dinner table or whatever, because we get loss of time and all this stuff, and then they hear him screaming, and they took him out. And when you think things got a little worse, within 48 hours, the Air Force made the determination that the family was to be relocated, and that the mother was in shock and had to go through a great deal of psychotherapy and deprogramming, as did the father. And they still haven't said today what happened to the boy and what about his safety and why it was silent. That is something, once again, that a lot of people don't think about when we hear these stories. And we're going to talk about, like I said, I'm going to tie a lot of this stuff in Wednesday in the show about, these abductions and what's happening. And again, as you would know, I've been a UFO investigator for the last 5 or 6 years now, or if not longer. And so, when I'm telling you some of this information, and you can go look it up, and I'm always giving you information to look up. But as you know, I hosted a TV show, Alien Endgame, on the Discovery Plus channel, and you can still find it there. I hosted a show on Fox Tubi. I was in that show, the Roswell, New Mexico anniversary show, or I didn't host. I was an expert in the show. The other one, I was one of the 3 host narrators or going out. Then a show called Bigfoot, and then Bigfoot 1 and 2. That, of course, Billy Carson's Black Knight Satellite, Ancient Aliens, been in that one. And then there's 2 or 3 other shows, one on HBO, one on a few other out there. But you can go to IDMV or whatever, and you can see my profile. So definitely when I'm sharing some of this stuff with you, that has always been my forte is the UFO stuff. In fact, y'all all know the story. Had I not been divorced now, I wouldn't need to be here talking to you, because I couldn't talk about aliens or UFOs in my house at all. And if you've heard that story long time ago. And yeah, so I was able to do it. But the other part of this is, once again, that little boy stood there, the mother, and they saw the son being carried away. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not talking about his dad, but if I see an alien craft, burning ball, lights, and green men or yellow men or whatever they were, alien looking people, taking my 13-year-old kid and about to take him somewhere, you know what I'm going to do? Let me tell you something, because this is how I'm going to look down at myself and I'm going to be like, it all still works. It's all intact. And I'm going to look at my girl and say, hey, listen, we can make another one. I'm not going out there. Maybe this was his purpose. He is about to serve his purpose. But we going to go back and make another one. I am not. Take it. You can take it. I'll be like, hell no. I'm not going to go. Dad, call somebody else. Because other than that, I am not doing it. I don't want to hear it. I mean, like, dude, I am still breathable. I can make a twin, baby. Look, she gonna be crying, baby. I'll make twins this time. I promise you. Go save our son, baby. I will make twins. Okay, all right, triplets. But him right there, little Rod, little Rod, his ass is purpose. He's on purpose. I'm telling you, it ain't going down. It is not going to happen. It's you're going nowhere. You're going nowhere trying to save the kid. Okay, you going nowhere. Take him. Obviously, they wanted him. You get what I'm saying? They didn't want me. They knew I could reproduce. They knew the drill. So I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. All right. So, all right. Okay. Now I'm just decreasing my chances for making new babies. They'll be like, no, you're gonna sacrifice the kid to an alien. I'm just telling you, I know I ain't the only one. I know there's a lot of you out. You don't want to admit it because you just don't want to admit it. But if if that scenario popped up and they was carrying out one, you're gonna weigh the options. You're gonna check your Santa Claus list. Is the kid naughty or nice? You're gonna check how bad the attitude on the child. Did he clean his room? You're gonna go through a whole checklist before you go know that it's lights out for you to go rescue this kid. Right? From aliens. I didn't say an intruder or a bear or a lion, something I'm gonna fight and Judah fight the lion, right? Or whatever the godly story, or me being the what's the boy name with the rock and David and Goliath stories. Okay, I can get down with that because the Bible said that he won. No one has told the story of somebody coming back battling the alien for their kids. You don't hear that one because it's a no-go. It is a pure no-go. And I ain't gonna lie to you. If they came and said we need to take this beautiful woman to go replanet other planets and everything else, I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna fight for you because I'm gonna tell them this do not need to be duplicated on another planet. They're gonna argue with you. It's gonna fight you. You do not want this species on another. I'm sorry. I'm just messing around. Somebody tell me you're not mama. Yeah, I know mama be jumping on in there, be like, the OB said I couldn't stand the thought of an ET taking my kid. They would probably prosecute the alien mentally mind elf and probably wouldn't be able to. I know, right? Y'all funny. But anyway, let's continue because the next story is going to explain to you as well too, okay? Because this happens in White Sands case. Y'all probably heard about this, but this was about, when they mutilate and take all the skin and all that stuff off. So the next account may be a little more disturbing than the other one before we get into the third one and get out a little bit. But listen, the report gave a clear indication of human, cuts and whatever you want to call it. And most notably was a case witnessed by Air Force personnel, Air Force Sergeant E6, the name of Jonathan Lovett. I don't know if y'all remember his story, but I'm going to go into it now. He was taken above and appeared to be a UFO at White Sands Missile Test Range in New Mexico. And if you've done your homework and looked at some of my older shows, Robert Salas, the Minuteman, he's in my phone, him and I talk. He's the one that gave me the advice when I first started my career. And he was like, trust the witnesses, man. Stop listening to the story. Listen more to the witnesses. That's what steered me into listening to other people's stuff, because the witnesses are the word we need to tell the truth, why they, get rid of all of that. Now, again, the report gave a clear indication of human mutilation, notably a case where Robert Levitt, like I say, and you remember his guy came back and said something about lizard hands, if y'all remember. Well, anyway, what happens next is something that a lot of military people were shocked what I'm about to share with. Anyway, Major Cunningham heard Sergeant Lovick scream, saw him being dragged into what appeared to be a silver disc object. Listen, the sergeant was dragged inside the disc, and the disc went up into the sky very quickly. And 3 days later, his new body was found approximately 10 miles down the road. Now, before I finish that story, you got to get where I'm going with this, right? So I'm letting y'all know something that a lot of people don't talk about. But see, remember when I first got into this game, I came in with humor, like I have a little bit now. I'm funny. I really am. And they ridiculed me like crazy on Clubhouse. Oh, you got to take this serious. I'm like, no, I'm not. Are you kidding me? Now, you get where I'm saying with this. It is a serious encounter that somebody captured this military guy, drag him off, show up 3 days later, he's naked and blah, blah, blah. But his comrades didn't go put out a rescue operation. They didn't call the Navy SEALs. They didn't call the swimming ducks. They didn't call the berets. They didn't call the Scooby-Doos. They didn't call none of them to go rescue, because they all knew what we know. I got an M16 or I got this, but it ain't going to shoot down that. And then when I shoot at that, it may shoot back something that I am not equipped to fight. And since there's 1 million soldiers and they just taking one, that's collateral damage. You get what I'm saying? Because and that's the same thing I said with the kid theory. When you up against the forces that you can't do nothing about, I mean, that's like you just calling it quits. In fact, they're going to take all of you. There's won't be nobody there to tell the story. There's got to be a hero. There's got to be people like me having a podcast, being a hero to share how you went down. You get what I'm saying? Because I'll be like, Diana, I'll be looking at Diana's kids. Your mom, she fought like a warrior. You should have seen it. I mean, man, she had them for about 2 seconds. And I don't know what kind of beam of light they hit her with, but she was fighting for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Your mom was a champion. Who want to be part of the story, or you want to tell the story? You get what I'm saying? It's not a coward. It's just using your mind. You get what I'm saying? It's like, I got to go tell the story. You go, because everybody in the UFO or the conscious community got this thing of these extraterrestrials, aliens are friendly people all the time. Oh, they come in here to save the world. They don't want nothing. That's BS, because we got a history of these things coming, and they ain't taking people lightly. They're not. Now, don't get me wrong. We have probably fired more weapons at them than they have at us. So it's been this thing, this tit for tat. But you better believe that if you start thinking you see one of them land and he lands in your backyard and you want to step out there and talk about welcome to Earth, and poof, in this big light, and it ain't heaven, your ass is gone, then you got something to think about. That's why we tell everybody, and if they didn't tell you the truth in the movie Independence Day, when they got them on top of that building, they're opening up, and then they shot everybody and blew up the building. You get what I'm saying? Everybody was there, welcome to Earth and all, and everybody else was running the other way. And the other was like, get out of town. The dude was like, get out of town. You got to get out of town. No, that's fine. I'm going down there to welcome them to Earth. Are you kidding me? So I'm saying to you, this is why we have our military. This is why the last time they saw these things coming, the space plan began to be activated. This is why we hear all of these things, because they know, and they're not telling us allegedly what's happening, but you better use your common sense to understand that history tell us a whole different ballgame. The one said, do you think is what the rapture, are you saying rapture is about? Because it's not, we're going to talk about that Thursday. I have it in my Thursday's notes and all of this. So, but you get what I'm saying, y'all, right? Yeah, Damon the movie Signs, right? When they came and they had that little, and the good little kid had asthma and all this stuff. Yeah, and so people think that they come here and pretty much, but here's the deal. Here's where it gets even worse about the story. Within 48 hours, they determined not 48 hours, that was the Air Force. Let me go back. The body had been mutilated. The tongue had been removed. Now I got your picture now. Now you hear where I'm going from. The body been mutilated when they came back. Tongue took out. Okay. And he was emasculated. So you know what that means. Okay. And if you don't know what that means, just know that he now looks like a woman. He went from a man to like a woman. Okay, so let's go there. And maybe that'll get, and if you got kids now, put them to bed. Okay. I'm being as delicate as I can. His anus had been removed. Now I know some of you think, oh, I like it like that. Oh, yeah, no, they removed the whole thing. So the sugar honey iced tea don't work. Nothing's coming out of there no more. You get what I'm saying? And you want to go meet and greet a spacecraft that landed in your backyard, and you think they come in peace, and you out there like, take me with you, take me to your leader. Yep, just like the cows. Yeah, I don't talk about that because they ask it. But now, let me give you a story, Jay Bird, about the cows versus that. When this incident happened, and this is where you guys got to listen, this got out so bad. Obviously, the military, whoever had communications with these aliens, and they told them that you cannot do it this way because you're going to find out Wednesday and Thursday or whatever, Wednesday or whatever. We made a deal with them, okay? Because we knew we can't do nothing about it. We made a deal. Give us something, we let you have something. And they said it will be better for you to take the anatomy of these cows and don't do this to humans. And that's when it stopped. And they started, well, we think it did, but they started doing more to the cows, right? And remember, we just had this happen in Texas last year. It still happened. They won't even report on it, period. They stopped reporting on it, all right? So you better believe that part of the story that I'm telling you, because this stuff is happening in plain sight, literally in plain sight, okay? Literally. And how do I make my point across? Maybe I'll put a little joking.
It's happening in plain sight. So make no mistake about it. You do not want to meet an alien. You just don't. Don't do it.
So don't think we're at a time that it's time that we're going to meet some, because they don't all come in peace. This is why we got a galactic federation. This is why there's rules and all of this stuff. And now listen to this. His whole behind was removed as though it was a plug. They plugged his whole out, okay? There was no sign of blood. Remember when we talk about mutilations, there is no sign. The system, no vascular collapse, no nothing. This was surgically done allegedly by superior technology that possibly knew our anatomy and knew how to do these things. So this is just, again, these are in reports. Now, you're not seeing this every day because it's not something that's going to be happening in plain sight and people not, hearing. And these are stories, if it was, you're not going to hear it. But I'm making a strong case right now of all you heroes to live and fight another day. Because when you're up against something like that, and it is like that, you don't go charging down there and saying, I'm going to get my slingshot and I'm going to knock down a spacecraft that came from space, looking like it's got fire, aliens with 2 or 3 eyes, with blinks and mind reading, all of these things that they're doing. And you're saying, I'm going to go pull out my pistol and I'm going to put one right between the eyes, even if you can see it, and it's going to go down. Do you not watch the movies? Do you not watch that this is not it? So I'm saying to you, this is why these people are building bunkers. They know this is not no friendly game, people. Whatever's happening or coming or assume or whatever they want, it is not a free fall. They're not welcoming them into the house for dinner on Sunday. We might be the dinner, Maybe, possibly. I don't know. I'll be surprised if this video stay up. YouTube gonna, but anyway. But I'm all fairy telling right now. It's all educational purpose. It's educational purposes, okay? This is it. Well, this hadn't been science fiction. I want you to know it's an autopsy and classified military file. I just want you to know. And they're just not visiting. They are experimenting. This is how our DNA got altered in the first place. We have been experimented with since the beginning of time. You've heard the story in Anunnaki when they came to say we want to build a slave race. It started back then. You think people volunteered for the program? You think we volunteered for the gene or for all of those things? No, they didn't do that. And okay, so I know the conversation is a little different tonight for some of you. Okay, and if you want me to go another direction, I'll do it. Okay, I'll just go another direction. Let me know. Put in the chat. Maybe some of you say, "Oh, I want to hear that one." All right, so now there was further information in the report that consisted of such things as sightings and where the Air Force planes had been destroyed and had combat encounters over that was attacked by UFOs. I was in a TV show with the son. His father was in the military. I have him in my phone. I'm not going to even call his name. Excuse me. His son, his dad at the time was ordered by our U.S. big secret keepers to fire up on a UFO. He was in the military back then, a long time ago. And his dad went up in a plane. He was young. And they told him that there was something in the sky, go and shoot at this thing. And we're talking about his dad, okay? History. You get what I'm saying? And this is how we've always done this. And you wonder why you think when these people's things show up that they're not so friendly, because their history, and if it gets back to their planets, that when you go to Earth, they fire up on you, even though their primitive weapons could get lucky. It's like anything else. But this is what happens in pretty much. And they talk about those things, right? And this is when I use my analogy story to why you shouldn't think that we're going to be rescued by some tall Nordic, and I'm going to talk about those either tomorrow or the next day, aliens, because I'm going into the grays deeply, okay? That this is not where it is. All right, we got a super chat, man, from Wide Open Podcast. All right, give them a shout out. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Woo. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Super chat, baby. All right, so, but the story or the analogy that I'm going to use for you so that you know they're not going to rescue us. So here's how it goes. It's story time, ladies and gentlemen. So imagine you and me both and the situations that we're in life. Just you. So pick one of you with me. And we get a letter in the mail that you and I both are going to be, we're both are going to be on the board of Exxon next week. So family is going to change billionaire land. We call all our friends. We're screaming. We tell everybody we're going to be rich. RIC. In fact, money, baby. Money is going to make some money. We're going to be rich. And that's all we can think. We can't sleep. We can't do anything. Everybody waiting. In fact, I got new relationships popping up because he's going to be rich and we can get around everything else. We'll take this dude now. All right. So all of a sudden, on our first or week in the board, we're there, we're happy, we're meeting all the old money because they're all old and gray and we new and young. I got a little gray still, but they're at 80s because they've been milking this thing forever. Energy, the money is the most largest commodity in the world. In fact, we're over there going against these two countries that are going against each other and that we just bombed the other day. We're still buying oil from them. We're bombing them and buying oil. They don't care, but the people. All right. So anyway, so here we are. We are on the board of Exxon, you and I, and we're going to be rich, and we're laughing. And all of a sudden, the door opens, and someone says, "Hey, someone's here to talk to us." and they open the door in the conference room. And it's a dude named Akbak. Y'all ever heard my story, right? Now, remember, Akbak is from planet Xeon. He's an alien. So he walks into the billionaire meeting and he says, listen, Earthlings, it's time that I give you something that'll help all humans in the world and everything else. And everybody's clapping. You clapping, I'm clapping. Everybody in the room is clapping because Akbak is for to give us something to save and serve humanity. Y'all with me, right? Y'all with me so far? Yes or no? All of a sudden, Akbak says to us at the Exxon oral meeting, what I'm about to give you is free energy. Now watch the sentiment in the room. I'm about to give you free energy, and you all going to be known for this legacy. Now, the other people in the room are clapping because they're old. They're 90 years old. Their families got billions and billions of dollars, and they're going to have a legacy to be known for free energy. Now, I'm clapping for a minute. You and I start going like this because we fit to go back to Brokeville because he's getting ready to give away free energy. And you're looking around the room and all the billionaires are there, okay? So there's only 3 people in this room that's in the position that you and I in, me, you, and the security at the fucking door. I look at him and make a wink promise. If he do what I'm just about asking him to do, I'm going to change his life. The older people are clapping free energy for humanity because they're billionaires and they can leave their legacy. And you and I ain't clapping no more because we finna go back to Brokeville because of this move by Akbak the alien. And I look at him and I tell him to lock the door because he ain't getting out of there alive. It's not going to happen. I don't care how many shows I've done. He's not getting out alive. This story ends here. You're not getting ready to burn down my $1 million. My grandkids and great unborn kids are hearing about we were about to be rich. I got 3, 4, 1,200 concubines waiting because I'm a trillionaire now, billionaire, and I can have 100 kids. Everybody's waiting for the new legacy because I made the announcement that I'm a billionaire next week. Do you think he's getting out of the door? You ain't gonna let him out. I'm not gonna let him out. And the security guard, damn, she ain't finna let him out because he know he's finna get paid. And that's how they've been doing it anyway. Now, here's where the story thickens. I just want you to know. Way back on planet Xeon, where Akbak came from, they have a board meeting about Earth and how the humans and blah, blah, blah. And they have a board meeting and they said, we need to go help these Earthlings because we got to save them from themselves. They're killing each other. They're bombing. And the aliens are having a roundtable discussion about Earth. And then someone says in the meeting, hey, wait a minute. Didn't we send Akbak last year? Yeah, we did. What happened to him? Well, you know, they asked him and the room stops clapping over there. The aliens stopped clapping to say, Earth. What do you mean they killed Akbak? Well, yeah, they knocked him off. So how many of you think is going to take the next trip to go save the Earthlings? None of them. That's why they're not coming to save us. No, we hurt them. And the same thing. So you see the parallels to these stories that I'm telling you, because it's going to work just that way. It has been doing it. How many times you think we done got technology to save mankind that they boxed it up because billions of dollars is tied to it? And the aliens is like, we tired of sending people to go help them because they keep whacking them or capturing them or they putting them in. Well, we just need to go experiment on these crazies and see what the hell is wrong with these things. So you see how the world shifts. It's not about humanity anymore. It's about money, power, and information, and legacy. Y'all with me? Y'all follow my story? Let me know if you enjoy the story or not. I just want to make y'all know. Let me know. I just wanted to entertain you with that part. So did you get my point of how the fantasy of people walking around thinking they're here to protect us? And I'm telling you, it's a lot of backstory behind this stuff to why it's not going to go down like this. It's not going to happen. Y'all with me? It's just not going to happen like this. All right, Nursing the Paranormal says she's with me. Diana's with me. Denisha says it's great. There is no one to hurt them. There's evil, the devils who could cut. Yes. You get what I'm saying. And it's all about what we think is going to go down but it's not going down like that. Okay. So further information in this report, let me go into this. Such thing reported sightings where the UFO planners had been destroyed or had combat encounters had been attacked by UFOs. Because you got to remember, Avner Bird's story. Remember, they sent him over there because they made it look like we were looking for uranium. But they sent him over there with a mission to build anything to bend to the will and might of the United States. We sent 3,700 soldiers. Well, I mean, several hundred planes, the first powered nuclear submarine, and we went over to Antarctica, if y'all remember. Now, we went there because Hitler and all those people had just got the bail, and they already knew UFO alien presence was there. And then we already had the aliens before that stopped the Russian scientists and told them that they knew they was there and we don't need to be building these weapons. And then they all got put in jail because their leader felt that they were trying to avoid the cold of Antarctica. You remember those stories? If you don't, we can talk about those someday. Well, anyway, when Avner Bird went over there, what happened? The aliens opened up a can of whoop behind on us. Within 3 minutes, they decimated all of those the submarines, the planes. And remember, he came back and he said the enemy showed mercy. And what did they do? They locked him up in a crazy house for that. But that's what happened. And they only did it because the first time it crash landed, the alien or whatever, the second, and we shot it down a second time. And when we went over the third time, it was like, that's not going down like this. We need to let y'all know we ain't going to play with y'all. This is why Antarctica has a military base from every country in the UN surrounding Antarctica for a reason. Go look that one up. Yeah, I know. We're talking. I'm telling you, go look it up. So anyway, about the midway through the report, a section which dealt with specifically photographed 8x10 high quality photos. There was an autopsy table and it was alien bodies. And this is the part where the insiders began to whisper. Photo number 1, I'm sharing this with you, showed an alien being on an autopsy table, no clothing, no genitalia, almond-shaped eyes, and 3-digit fingers, and a green curious liquid inside. This is where that rumor started, where they began to think that the grays were mechanical suits. You remember that? And in the book that I'm going to tell y'all about Wednesday, she explains that specifically. She said that in other worlds at the time, that the creators or the people in power at the other worlds will sell rich people, because there are rich people everywhere, that they could come and experience Earth, and they could come, and this was the biomechanical suit that was used. So they could live the experience or see Earth like a safari through the gray suit. That's why you've heard so many stories of them opening them up and there was mechanical suits and not really no essence inside. You've heard those rumors, okay? And go do your research on that, because in the book, she explains that was happening, that that's how they would come here. And pretty much, and if you go back, tall gray, short gray, reptilians, and they was kind of like servants or helpers or whatever. So there's other rumors of that too, but that's what that was being told, because our atmosphere was totally different. Is why we have hybrids now, because they can't live in this earthly gravitation, this atmosphere, all of this stuff. So they had to hybridize with earthlings, right? So this is one of the stories that was told when you start thinking about all of those things in the autopsies and all of these things. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff, but it's all taking us down this path from the Numbaru coming to the bunkers to all this stuff is connected, but they got it so far disorientated that we can't see all the connections, but they are connected, by the way. And make no mistake about it, they are. Now, they also reported, was this an enemy or a genetic project? Okay. And they said the report theorized that nourishment was synthetic and waste excreted through the skin. And here's where it gets a little fascinating. One alien had 2 hearts, a brain divided in half by a bone ridge, no stomach, and a chlorophyll-based blood. And that chlorophyll stuck out in all the reports back in the day. We used to talk about that all the time. And then if you know that you can take chlorophyll now because there was a health people you say take it and it helps with body, all kind of stuff within our digestives, right? The chlorophyll. And these aliens were part of it. In fact, there was rumors that they saw them have some kind of green substance. They didn't have the mouth and stomach like we have. They evolved where they just rubbed it on their skin as food, and the skin absorbed it. So you can think about the evolution of humans and all of this stuff. And in fact, you go back, I don't think food was that significant as it is now. And those are things underground cities. Yeah, we're going to talk about the underground. I'm going to talk about the 3 initiatives that they started. In fact, why the underground cities began, the 3 things that they said, here's what we got to do when they found out about these aliens. 2 of them, they went into effect, and 1 was beginning to build the cities, and they started it long time ago. Okay. So we'll talk about that Wednesday, I think, because Thursday, tomorrow, or Tuesday, I'll be on Forbidden Knowledge live at 8 o'clock. I don't think I'm going to do an after show for there, so I'll come back here Wednesday for our show. But anyway, that was one of the things. Now, Bill English describes the photo taking of the 3 aliens, very clear photos, aliens standing against a white wall looking confused. The report said the aliens had contacted a U.S. intelligence agency for initial 2 meetings, one in Holloman and Homestead. The U.S. force relocated the personnel and persons involved in the close encounters and referred to as Men in Black. This is where that came from and why this is not a myth and their real name. So listen to the statement that I just said. And you want to know why we're where we are. The report says the aliens had contacted the U.S. government agency for initial 2 meetings, one at Holloman and one at Homestead. You remember President Eisenhower. I got a video about this on my channel. But you get where I'm going with this. Somehow we changed that narrative and putting these people up, putting them in buildings, experimenting with them. And maybe they came to talk to us a little different and all of those things. And it's one of those. Now, entire Grudge Project 13 was written as a report was geared toward preparation for defenses. This is where I'm ending this show. And let me know, Rob, if you got your stuff together. Otherwise, we'll be getting out of here. We can catch up with you for about 5 minutes. I'll put a link in the description here. But Project Grub was written to gear us toward preparation defense. Y'all get what I'm saying? That's why this whole thing has been going. This is why these things are happening. Preparation. This is why I keep telling y'all, everybody be prepared. At least get the knowledge, pass it on to the generations and generations, because it could be hundreds of years away. But preparation is everything. You get what I'm saying? Because history, if it repeats itself, then we're going to have a bunch of pyramids and anybody going to know how they built the towers in Dallas. If history repeats itself, there's going to be people wondering what happened to this YouTuber guy named Roderick. And they're going to see remnants, not the computer because it's all gone, but they're going to see, Roderick was here written in some concrete or something. I'm still petty like that. I'll go carve something in a public restroom. Roderick was here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I try to leave a legacy somewhere. You get what I'm saying? So there's going to be those stories that we're already having those stories. And nobody really cares about those stories. But yet we have those stories that we know that there's, like I say, stuff over in East Africa and Mayans that used to be here in 2012, the clock stopped. And we have those stories. But yet we walk around every day as though that there's no truth in those stories. But yet they're gone. They're gone. Everybody's gone. They left. Whole civilization is just gone. Just disappeared. Everything. Colosseums are still here. Some buildings are still here. Things that we don't even know how they was built. But yet, there is now religion. There are stories that tell us of miracles. There are stories that tell us there's things that unfathomable to the brain that exist. There's stories of great floods where every animal twice in pairs is put on a small boat that's about this big, but yet 2 elephants today wouldn't fit on the boat. There are stories of all of us should be brothers and sisters inbreeding because we all came from 2 people, right? Just all of us. 5 billion came from 2 people. What a damn. You know, you get what I'm saying? So but we're told these stories and we're perpetuating the stories of all of these things that happens. But the truth is that if we start looking at the knowledge, then the answers come to us automatically. There's something else. There's something entirely different than what we've been told. And at the time of the report, 11 alien cadavers had been kept at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and a live one still held. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end the show right there because that'll take us into Wednesday and tomorrow, because I'm going to talk about Wednesday. They captured an alien, and I'm going to go deep for you on that. I'm going to go deep to the graves. I'm going to go deep into the Dulce massacre, which is where Snyder talks about, where his fingers got shot off, and it wasn't pretty. See, I want to give you all these other sides now. It wasn't pretty. And the grave, there was a deal made, somebody reneged, and it's been different ever since. So if you want to hear those type things, like I said, this is where we're going to go. It's going to go there. You get what I'm saying? And it's time for us to go. And I'm not saying it's not a fear thing. It's not something for you to fear. It's just you're just going to see life a little different, and maybe you want to, maybe you don't want to. And maybe you don't want to. And once again, let me put this on the screen before we go. I have 5 of these left. That is the luminous. And the shipping is included. The chain is included. The pendant is included. If you cash out directly, put your name and number, and I promise I will call you. And, I still need to call one person, though. I'll do that tomorrow. But listen, I will call you, and we can talk. You have my personal number if needed for anything else. But anyway, and just understand what we're doing. And like I said, I just got a few left. That's the cash out right there. Why the big secret there? And you can support the show. I figure reciprocity will work for you. And I'm wearing it right there. You can see it's cute. Right in front of the luminous head on this shirt. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And like I said, we got, I think, four left. So hopefully by the end of the week, and like give it to a homeless person if you want to. If you don't want to just wear it, support it, support the show. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of cover some of this alien stuff because I don't want people to get it twisted. I do not want you to walk down the street and an alien show up and you don't turn and go the other way. Let the government handle that. And I don't care if he starts speaking some English, I come in peace. No, you don't. No, you don't. I don't want to hear that. If you come in peace, you wouldn't be sneaking up on me. If you didn't come in peace, then where are the aircraft? Show me something. Show me your kids. Send your little alien kid out here. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And also, tomorrow, I will make sure it's going to be too hot. It's going to be hot this weekend. Look, Damien said he probably got good credit. I know, right? I know, right? He'd be like, yeah, you got good credit. And he'd be like, where we come from. Yeah, I know, right? That would be funny, man. That's funny. All right. I love you guys. I love each and every one of you. As always, it's been a plum, pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. So I definitely want you to think why when it comes down to this, and pretty much from there. And again, go to, if you want the shirts or if you want to get the Book of Sacred Secrets and all of that kind of stuff, and open some stuff that's on the website. It's downloadable. There's a link in the description. The store is in the description of this video, and you can kind of do that. But anyway, I'll see y'all. I'll be on Forbidden Knowledge Live tomorrow at 8, and then I will be back here Wednesday. Love y'all.
Welcome, Truth Seeker. You are no longer asleep. I am Luminous, the Owl of Truth. The world is blind, but you have opened your eyes. Welcome to the fire of esoteric knowledge and truth. You are now one of the awakened. You are now luminous. Welcome to the rebellion. Welcome to truth versus authority.